So this morning I very nearly spat my tea out when I found out what Fender had just done. So they've gone and entered the amp modeler realm. Wow. You know what? Fender have done some stuff like this before, and they've had the little amps with modelers on it and things. And, you know, in the past they've always been, how can I put it? Poo. It's called the Fender Tonemaster Pro, which sounds very grand, but is often a warning. You know when you buy power tools from like a supermarket or a DIY store, it's their own brand, and they always put the word Pro after it to make it look like it's professional and trap you. Well, it usually means they're cacked, doesn't it? And that's what Fender have done. But looking at the price of this model and then looking at the videos that are knocking about, this looks real high end. This looks like a proper competitor to the Fractal and to the Line 6. The big thing for any new modeler has got to be processing power. And apparently this unit that Fender have done has got an 8-core processor, which is huge, huge. They've got an example of a preset that has a wah on it, a phaser, a chorus, 3 amps, reverb, 2 delays and a cab, all in one preset. The other thing they're saying is that there's no dropout when you change patches. The changing patches is seamless, if you like. They also have a snapshot, well, not quite a snapshot mode, but a mode similar to that where you can program a button within a preset to do various different things. You can split the board, so you've got it doing one set of things on the bottom, something else on the top. So for instance, you might be changing snapshots at the bottom and then individual pedals at the top, or you can have presets at the bottom and individual pedals at the top as well. It sounds like it's really, really flexible and they've done a great job and really thought it through and learned from all of the other modelers that are already on the market. Because let's face it, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and there's certainly giants whose shoulders you can stand on in this industry. Looking at the appearance of the thing, there's no real big surprises. It doesn't have a foot pedal for volumes and things like that, but obviously you can add one. The screen's a similar size to the Line 6, but it is a touch screen, a proper touch screen, which is a bit of a leap on. The screen is big as well, and the other thing I noticed that's really quite a good idea is that there's less knobs on the surfaces of the thing. There are 2, and they do stick up, which I'm not convinced is a good idea, because you know things do get kicked. If they were recessed, it might be a little bit of a better idea, but nevertheless there are only 2 knobs, and I'm sure Fender have been sensible enough to make them fairly rugged. But here's a really cool thing: all the foot switches are actually pots that you can turn as well. That's a great idea, because you link it to parameters on the screen and you can turn it with a real dial. Let's talk about some of the other features as well. 100 amps and effects. You know, it's a Fender and you'd expect them to have the Fender sounds, and yes, they've got all the Fender sounds and all the Fender amps, and they've got the EVH series as well, because Fender and EVH, well, Fender own EVH. But they're also putting in other things. So it's not just a Fender box, it covers all of the bases. It covers Marshall tones, it covers the lot. 6,000 cab impulse responses, third-party IR support, song and setlist modes. I'm not sure what that means, but that sounds interesting. It's got a looper on it, 4 effects loops, instrument and XLR ins. Now that's great, the XLR thing, and I've had a look as well, you can run 2 independent channels or pathways through it. So if you are a solo performer, you can run a guitar through one side, whether it be an acoustic or an electric, and you can run a microphone through the other side. It's a one-stop solution for a soloist. And if you play with backing tracks, it's got an aux in as well, so you can run your backing tracks into it. Not only that, it can store backing tracks. Not sure how many you can store or how easy it'll be to recall them and play them back through a foot pedal thing, but to be able to just plug your aux in to the back of the unit, run it from an iPad on your mic stand, you've got all your backing tracks there, you've got your vocal, you've got your guitar. As far as the solo performance is concerned, you're good to go. You plug it straight into your speakers and that's it. No mixing desk, no messing about with anything else, just one unit, one speaker, and you're good to go. That's great. And it gets better as well, because I've just discovered after starting to edit this, that it actually has a mixing desk function on it that looks like a mixing desk with faders, and you get 2 independent rows on your pedals as well. So you can have 1 row of pedals for your guitar stuff and another row of pedals for your vocal stuff, or for a second line of whatever you want. Whether it's another guitar, whether it's another singer, you could have 1 line for your acoustic guitar, 1 line for your electric guitar. You can do all sorts of things like that. It's really, really flexible. And I do a lot of solo acoustic gigs. It would mean that I could cut down to just having 1 pedal board that does all my electric gigs and all my acoustic gigs. That would be great. It's got 10-foot switches, each of which I assume you can program to do pretty much anything you like, which is great. And each one, they've nicked this idea from line 6 because it's a good one, and they're putting those little scribble strips on there, and they're even calling them scribble strips. It's got a desktop app. Oh, it's got Bluetooth as well, so you can just stream your backing tracks from your phone, from your tablet, straight through that, even better. And if you want to do headphone practice, it's got a headphone out as well. Looking at the manual, and I've got to say, the manual looks superb. Normally, you get some black and white thing that looks horrendous. Fender actually made a manual that looks inviting to read. That's a big plus, Fender, well done. Back to the plot, so the main screen, you've got your 2 encoders, each of which has got a little scribble strip on it by the looks of it. Great idea, because it means it can do more than just 1 or 2 things. Then a big screen, and look, there's your individual scribble strips and your foot switches that are encoders as well. So you can press them, you can stomp them, and you can turn the dials on all the things that come up on that massive screen. Let's have a proper look at the ins and outs. Mic line input, yeah. Instrument input, well, the mic line is one of those combo jacks, which is fine. Instrument input, standard guitar jack. You've got 2 stereo or 4 mono effects loops. Output section, you've got XLRs, and you've got 1/4-inch jacks, which is great, and you've got a ground lift on there as well. It's also got a second output, which it says is completely independent of output 1. So you can have 1 send going to front of house, you might have another one going to a monitor mix, or you might have another one going to a real amp, and you have your cabinets switched off on that output. You could do it like that, that'd be great. You've got an expression pedal input, and a separate input for a toe switch on an expression pedal. Yeah, usually that's just done with the stereo, but you know, it can switch channels on a real amp if you wanted to. That's a great little feature. It's got a micro SD slot. This is new and interesting. There's a micro SD card slot for future expansion of the Tonemaster Pro functionality. So, what is it going to let you download extra stuff onto a memory card? That'd be quite cool. USB-C port, European regs. And the USB port lets you do all your recording and editing, all of that kind of thing that you would sort of expect. MIDI ins and outs, power, blah, blah, blah. What's nice power-wise is actually got an IEC lead on it. So you just plug a power lead straight into that. You're not messing about with all these little daft power supplies or having to run it from your power brick that runs your other things. You just take an IEC lead, bang it into the back of there, and you're good to go. Bailout button on there. They've got a factory reset. There's an update button. Activates firmware update. So you have a firmware update button. Be interesting to see how that works. So in use, you've got a gig view, which just tells you what preset you're on. That's all you need. And then the scribble strips will tell you all the rest. But then when you're editing, you've actually got a set list mode. So you can put your songs in, and then it'll click through as you go. That's a good idea. And the screen itself, when you're editing it, looks great. You've got actual pictures of the gear that you're using, rather than just a block and a square that says this is a drive, this is this is that. You've got a picture of the unit itself. So you've got a picture of a tube screamer or a DS1 or whatever it happens to be that you're using. You've got a picture of the amplifier that you're using that looks like that amplifier. So the display looks great. Then you just tap on whatever it is you want to edit, and then up comes that pedal in detail, or that unit in detail, and you can just use your encoders, or you can use your finger on the screen to edit it. That's great. Looking at the amps, there's quite a range there. They're not giving you the detail and an actual amp list in the manual, but they're breaking amps down into types. So there's combos, there's amp heads, which you can then put your own IRs with, there's half stacks, there's cabinets that are separate, there are separate effects, and then there's a section for effects loop, and then, which is nice, is you've got a mixer and a splitter, and then you've got a separate section for for the impulse responses. Looking about on YouTube to some of the sounds that this thing has, there's a few people who've got demos on them. All that England has, Fluff, what's his face with the beardy thing he has, there's a few people who've got them. Andertons have got a good one. Go and listen to some of the captures, because the sounds on these things, it does sound pretty good. Well, it sounds really good, to be fair. It sounds really, really good. The thing that I think that maybe is missing, and it's obviously been a conscious decision, is the captures. There's no captures on this unit. It's just a modeler, not a capturer, a capture unit. It's not like the Kemper or the Tonex. So, you know, I switched from using modelers to using captures because the difference was just unbelievable in the quality of the sound. Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? I don't know. Without having hands-on to the thing to compare it to captures, I don't know. But certainly when you're playing with a capture, you've got all the dynamic range that capture offers you. It doesn't necessarily back off, although the Tonex is really good when you're comparing it to backing off your volume, important and responding like that. When you program it from the ground up, I suppose you can build all of that kind of thing in. But go and check it out. This looks like a really good, really promising unit, and this could be, dare I say it, this could be the Helix Killer. I have done a video on the things that I would like to see updated in the Line 6 and in the Helix. Some of them are actually in the Fender unit, which is interesting. So go watch that as well.